Hello, my name is Dana Louise, and I authored a book called This Is Gonna Sound Weird. That's me on the cover. I was in Norway for a hot minute. But anyway, thank you for joining me, and my book can be found on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. I probably get it off of Amazon. Anyway, and some other websites. And it's a little bit of a controversial read, but it's my truth of my experiences. Just so you know that I'm a contactee and an experiencer. And my experiences started when I was an infant and still in the crib. The Greys used to come and visit me. So, yeah, I know. Sounds weird, right? And then after that, the whole paranormal and supernatural worlds started to drop by. So I ended up writing this book. And I'm on this platform now. I'm new to it, as you can see. And I'm just going to start reading chapters, about 10 minutes, because that's about all the time we have. And so let me start. We're going to go to chapter 6, I do believe. Here we go. And this chapter, class, is called Spirit to Shell. Like spiritual, but I don't even know if you can read it. Spirit to Shell. Spiritual. All right. Dun, dun, dun. And I always have like a little quote at the beginning of my chapters. And this one is from The Little Prince. And I'd say the author's name, but I would like super screw it up. Antoine de Saint... It's French. Don't even know. Sorry, French people. I love you. Anyway. I'll look as if I'm dead. And that won't be true. I said nothing. You'll understand, it's too far. I can't take this body with me. It's too heavy. I said nothing. But it'll be like an old abandoned shell. There's nothing sad about an old shell. I said nothing. All right. Most people disregard their dreams when they should be paying closer attention. Loved ones pop in to visit, but are sometimes dismissed as folly by morning. Sure, it happened in dream time, but the visit was real. Don't ignore those important messages. We spend a third of our lives sleeping. Other cultures believe that dreams are just as valid as what we encounter during the day, even more so. At night, your soul, spirit, or true self travels off to whatever or wherever you want to call it, the divine. If you believe in an afterlife, then this is our nightly connection to it. We are spiritual beings having a temporary temporal experience we call home every night. A strange phenomenon used to happen just when I was about to wake up. While technically still asleep, I'd experience my soul's re-entry into my body. Swooping into the room, I'd arrive to see my body lying motionless before, unanimated, just like a living shell waiting for its commander. My eyes were closed, yet I could see around the room perfectly. If my third eye was activated, the perspective would be from my body, but this point of view was from above. As I approached, my vision would funnel down to the size of an egg. Things seemed far, far away like a tunnel vision. Next, my awareness shifted to the top of my head where my re-entry took place, at the crown chakra. An out-of-body episode is normally tethered through the solar plexus with an umbilical silver cord. This was different. My body vibrated. My hands would tingle. Once I was back, I'd make a fist to solidify that I was there. There were never any side effects. I never suffered from headaches, vision problems, epilepsy, seizures, or any of that nature. This occurred naturally. Our souls are weirdly attached to our bodies. We're just a shell driven by spirit. Why does the same soul keep returning to the same body day after day? That alone seems like a miracle. I think it'd be more mercurial. This attachment is agreed to before we are born, but we feel like we didn't get to pick. When our spark detaches, the shell is no longer animated. Whether you believe the soul is introduced at conception or birth, it happens at some point. For me, I knew the next morning when I was pregnant with my first child. The feeling of another soul inside of me came forward. I just knew. Other women have reported the same thing. That experience changed everything for me. Even after a soul is assigned to a specific vessel, it can retract, remain intact, and choose to return at a different entry point into a different body. Fear not for those who were never born, no matter what the reason. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but simply transformed from one state to another. It's rearranged. That's amazing. Souls can choose to return to inhabit a different shell if they wish. It's not reincarnation because they were never born, but it's similar. The body is a very different subject. They are unique. One and done. Ashes to ashes. The soul doesn't experience time, but the body needs to. After we evolve into light beings, things will be very different. Yes, the human race is still evolving. Why would that stop? We are becoming more like our Creator, less dense, at least physically, LOL. Here's how I know all this is true. A few years ago, I got a reading. Yes, I've had a number of them. Towards the end of the sessions, she said to me, "Your brother is now with you." My brother's 14 years older. He's a half sibling, and we never hang out. So she's wrong. At first, I had no idea what she was talking about until a flood of memories came rushing back to me as she was speaking. She reminded me that I had another brother. I had totally forgotten about him. So how did she know? The poor boy was spontaneously aborted long before I was born. That's how doctors termed it. The medical designation was abortion. It hurt my mother's heart to hear these words spoken. For her, abortion sounded like a choice, a procedure. She preferred the term miscarriage, especially because there had been an accident. There wasn't a choice. You could say the baby's mission was aborted, but not him, not by choice. He never inspired a breath of air. He remained a water astronaut. Mom was maybe 5 or 6 months along when it happened. She was helping Dad start the car. It was one of those old jalopies where you had to hand crank the engine at the front of the grill. They tried to park on a slight hill to help get the car rolling. Otherwise, you had to push it to jumpstart the engine. Once it moved, you had to hop in and pop the clutch. It was a 2-person job. It was winter. The street was icy. As she cranked, she slipped. She fell. They lost the baby. The hospital took his little being away immediately. My parents never saw him, nor did they ask about his remains. All they were left with was an unofficial birth certificate as a keepsake. Can you imagine? On the document were the imprints of 2 tiny feet for a nameless child, baby boy. With our family name, that was all that was inscribed. The memento was framed but never hung on a wall. Tucked away in a closet, it was forgotten. That's how I found out about him. I was digging in my mother's closet for something. I asked and was given a brief answer. End of subject. Mom didn't learn to drive for about 15 years afterwards. I never put 2 and 2 together until now. The unexpressed grief and acknowledgement for this child was stored in between folded sweaters. I'm glad for the certificate. If it weren't for that, we would have nothing to remember him by. I probably would have never learned that he even existed. He was forgotten. He should still be remembered. When my parents died, I discovered the certificate on the shelf again. All these years, it had never moved. I cherished it and kept it. But I didn't hang it up either. It was stashed away in a closet and forgotten once more. Now you have to understand that the person giving this reading had zero knowledge about me. That's how I roll. I tell them nothing. All she knew was my first name. She had zero clues about my family or me, especially extended family. She went on to say, "You know who your brother is. He came back to you. You, your sister, and your brother all spend time together. You go on trips with him. You know him. He wanted to enjoy a life with you in this manner and not how it would have been. Things would have been more difficult. different. Had he lived, you and your sister would likely not have been born. He stepped aside for you and then returned. He stepped aside? He stepped aside? Wow. I was over the moon. I knew exactly who she was talking about. My nephew. My sister's son. He even looks like he could be our brother more than her son. And yes, we've traveled together. From the beginning, he was like a son to me. For a few months, I did his daycare, so we became attached. When he was older, we became comrades, even more so when he became an adult. We had deep conversations over a couple of cocktails. It brings me so much joy to make him laugh, partners in crime. Indeed, the three of us enjoyed being together and traveling like three amigos. This type of connection didn't happen between my sons and my sister, so it was very clear who this was about. After the reading, I told my nephew the news. It made perfect sense to him as well. When it was possible, I gave him the birth certificate. It was the right thing to do. Who else could care for it and have it? He came back. He stood aside so that he could be born. What a gentleman. Souls come back to us if they choose to. Fear not. The end of life is not the end of our connection. We inhabit only a shell. Shells are what we collect along the beaches of our existence. And I just want to say that my nephew is also an author. He's a writer. That's his profession. And he writes horror stories. And he is becoming quite famous. And I'm super proud of him. So writing must be in the family. I don't know. Have I overtalked my 10 minutes? Is time up? All right. Until the next time, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. And remember, I hope you buy the book. Thanks.